Hello, everybody. I'm Sandy Rivera. Welcome to the Monday morning edition of AM Houston. Good morning, Mario. Hope you had a pleasant weekend.
Oh, it was a great weekend,
Good.
Wasn't it, everybody? The weather will continue that way, at least today. And we got some changes again coming around the middle of the week. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes.
All right. And also coming up, we're going to talk to Ronald Reagan's former speechwriter to find out what life is really like when the president tells the American public what she used to write. Also, find out how to fight crime in your neighborhood. Plus, Women for Sobriety is helping alcoholics turn their lives around. We'll have all of that, plus the news headlines, traffic updates, and much more. Thanks for making us part of your morning with AM Houston. These are the top stories of the day. A soldier from Houston injured in a Panama City nightclub bomb blast has died. The soldier, 21-year-old Anthony Ward, an Army specialist, died at a Panama City hospital from injuries sustained in the blast over the weekend. Ward was one of 16 American servicemen wounded late Friday in the attack. Ward died Saturday. Witnesses say two men yelling, "Long live Noriega," threw a grenade through the window of the club. Houston City Councilman and Army Reservist Vince Ryan was in Panama after the invasion, and he says the attack is an isolated incident.
There were a few diehard supporters of Noriega that we probably didn't round up. So this kind of thing can happen anywhere. That it's happened in Panama is just another factor to consider, not, I think, anything to keep Americans from going down there to help Panama.
6 men remain in the hospital, one of them another Texan from Amarillo. Bars, casinos, and discos in Panama are now off limits to all U.S. servicemen. A 4-year-old boy is dead this morning after being hit by an ice cream truck. Police say the boy was riding on his scooter when he swerved in front of the ice cream truck. The truck was traveling slowly, and police say the boy's scooter must have gotten caught under the wheel. The young victim died later at Bentop Hospital. This morning, authorities are finding out more about the man who allegedly held 6 children and their babysitter hostage for more than 24 hours this weekend. 18-year-old Roland Bernard Adams had been charged with 6 counts of aggravated kidnapping. He's being held on a $140,000 bond. Investigators say Adams broke into the babysitter's apartment Friday and then demanded $10,000 ransom. A SWAT team was able to free the children and their sitter without harm on Saturday. Now, investigators are trying to find out just why Adams wanted that money.
It's going to be money. He apparently was trying to extort money from his grandmother, who is the grandmother of some of the children that were present there at the scene.
Police say although the babysitter knows Adams, she was not involved in that extortion plot. 2 of the hostages were the babysitter's children. In other news, the 1990 version of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is now history, but organizers say it will be remembered for a long time as a record-breaking event. Last night, more than 20,000 head of livestock left the Astro Hall, which had been their home for the past 2 weeks. 11 News reporter Dave Failing has more.
They loaded up the livestock, another show over, but it may be remembered as one of the best.
Looking at our books right now, we are setting records in absolutely every category.
Nearly 10% more people attended the rodeo. Over 6% more people paid to attend the carnival.
176!
And the livestock shows.
Leroy Melcher has the bid at
And speaking of livestock, never have they auctioned off sheep, pigs, and steers for as much money as they did this year.
sold the steer $180.
The record-smashing $180,000 for the grand champion steer helped push total auction sales up 23% over last year. But not everyone was happy. Paul Carroll, the guy selling those cowboy hats, was one vendor the big spending stampede passed by.
Well, the business is down from last year 10-15%.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. The crowds are up, but I think people are spending a little less per sale.
Still, he's not complaining. And organizers say most vendors had record sales.
It just got to mean that the economy is back in Houston and people are out involved in doing things.
The group Alabama provided the finale to the 16-day event.
Some blue up above us. Let's leave some green on the ground.
Dave Failing, 11 News.
Greyhound bus drivers will return to the picket lines today after observing a day of memory for a striker crushed by a bus driven by a replacement. For passengers across the country, there is a combination of frustration and fear. In Chicago on Sunday, some Greyhound buses needed police escorts after snipers took shots at temporary drivers. In California, strikers wore black armbands to honor veteran bus driver Bob Waterhouse. Waterhouse, seen here in an interview, was killed by accident Saturday when he was hit by a bus driven by a replacement driver. Waterhouse was concerned the new drivers were too inexperienced. Police did not charge the replacement driver and said the death appeared to be accidental. Back here at home, striking bus drivers protested peacefully. The union and the Greyhound management are deadlocked over pay issues and job security. And the strike by Eastern Airline machinists reached a one-year anniversary Sunday. Across the nation, pickets and posters prove the strike is still alive and kicking. The union is still hoping that Chairman Frank Lorenzo will fail and somebody else will buy out that company. But the pickets are not keeping away the passengers.
Unions tried to break Lorenzo, and they were not successful. So from that standpoint, the strike was not successful.
The anniversary was marked here in Houston, too. At Intercontinental Airport, the machinists were joined by other local union members, including Greyhound strikers. Steelworkers and pilots also showed their support. The machinists have vowed their year-old strike will last one day longer than Frank Lorenzo. The space shuttle Atlantis is back home today following a picture-perfect landing Sunday in the Mojave Desert. The shuttle crew arrived home last night. A small crowd gathered there to meet them at Ellington Field. The shuttle touched down around noon yesterday at Edwards Air Force Base in California for a picture-perfect landing. During the four-day military mission, the astronauts reportedly launched a $500 million spy satellite. On the political front, the March 13th primary elections are about a week away, but only half the candidates running for the governor's office are worried that we don't know them, and they're blaming the media for leaving them out of the campaign spotlight.
The Republicans will not be
News coverage of political candidates may sway public opinion.
rocks. He'll bust our party, and he'll bust the candidates that are in our.
Teresa Hearn Haynes, the first black running for governor, charges she hasn't been given her fair share of the media spotlight.
I think that all candidates should be given fair and equitable coverage so that the voters will know what their choices are and leave the selection of the candidates to the voters rather than to the media.
WN Otwell says he's been ignored too.
Our political analysts and the media experts now, though, really are picking our candidates, and that's not right. I've been put off of 2 live television debates, and I'm just as qualified. I'm just as credible as any of these candidates. It's just that I don't have money.
The televised debates also excluded others like Earl Holmes, Ed Cute, and Ray Rachel. In this situation, all of the candidates were invited to discuss education in Texas. More than 1,000 teachers and administrators heard what they had to say. They were given equal time to make their points.
Basically, politicians and bureaucrats are great at spending money and not very good at making it. And unfortunately, some of the problems that we have can't be PR'd away.
And Royce Owen subs up his feelings this way.
I wanted to give it a shot. I don't think anybody's any better than I am. They may have more money. And I tell them all, if I had more money, I would show you how good I was. But I'm pretty good.
They all get equal billing at the ballot box March the 13th. In other news, several Houstonians who were election monitors in Nicaragua are now back home. Sister Janet Gottschalk was one of them. She says the Nicaraguan people are tired of war and poverty, whether they supported the Sandinista government or Violeta Chamorro's UNO coalition. She believes the elections were fair, but not necessarily a victory for the opposition.
I guess I would say it was not a vote against the Sandinistas. It was a vote of sheer exhaustion. As many of them said, almost with a bit of guilt. We voted with our stomachs. We voted for some peace.
The Roman Catholic nun says there was an element of unfairness in the election, the massive American support for the winning coalition. She says the United States should end its support of the Contras and provide aid for the new government. Well, an old familiar face is back in his regular place. CBS's Andy Rooney returned to the airwaves yesterday. His 3-month suspension from 60 Minutes was cut short this week, and last night he was back on the program. That suspension was sparked by an article in a gay magazine quoted Rooney as saying, he made a racist remark, a remark that Rooney says he never made. Sunday night, the curmudgeon of CBS defended himself against charges of racism, recounting the time he was arrested for sitting on the back of the bus with black soldiers. Now, he says, comes the hard part.
What do I do about the kind words heaped on me by friends and strangers? It's overwhelming. How do I live up to such praise? Let's face it, even on the nights when I'm good, I'm not that good. Do I have any opinions that might irritate some people? You're damn right I do. That's what I'm here for.
Well, Rooney did lapse into a humorous vein, saying he tried to lose weight while he was off. He was not that successful. Perhaps he could have succeeded, he said, if he just had 2 more months. Time now to check the Monday morning weather forecast. Here's meteorologist Mario Gomez. Good morning, Mario.
Good morning, everybody. Well, good morning, Sandy. The weather couldn't be better. The weekend was super. Let's continue it today. Why don't we? Well, there is some high clouds and some middle clouds from a very weak disturbance, but we're not getting any showers from those clouds. Probably won't do that all day long. We are going to get some temperatures that are going to be warming through the afternoon. Unlike yesterday, it looks like the temperatures could hit the middle 70s. We only got to about 72 yesterday. Most of the states seeing pre-spring-like weather today. Temperatures could get close to 80 down in the Rio Grande Valley. A very weak front entering the Central Plains. That front will not affect us for most of the week. Let's take a look at our forecast. You're going to like it because it starts off with sunshine this morning, and it stays that way. There is a few clouds, though, in the forecast, at least for much of the afternoon and for much of the morning. Increasing clouds again tomorrow, and by late night, the clouds could be around, providing us with temperatures that are fairly mild overnight, only the 60s. That's as low as we'll go. Overnight temperature at about 60 for a low, and then around the middle of the week, Sandy, just like last week, looks like we've been lucky. The middle of the week has been wet. The weekends have been dry. Let's hope it stays that way. The weather pattern looks like it's shaping up just like last week's, with showers coming in around Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay, Mario. Okay. Thank you very much. And coming up during the beginning of the show, we're going to be talking to Peggy Noonan. She was a former speechwriter for Ronald Reagan and also George Bush. We'll find out about what life is really like in the White House. If you'd love to participate in this morning's discussion, give us a call, 390-KHOU or 1-800-324-KHOU. Back with more right after these words.
Let's face it, it's depressing to be hospitalized. 10 years ago, if you had a cataract removed, you had no choice. Now it's different. At our eye clinic, we use advanced techniques in cataract care. It takes about 20 minutes to remove a cataract and implant a new lens that can painlessly restore clear vision. And that's something to smile about.
Man Eye Clinic, now in Baytown and throughout Houston.
We asked Kelly which bacon they eat at her house.
That one.
How come?
Because it has so much red on it.
Thank you.
And I like red. I have red cap, I have red hair, and I have red overalls, and I have red shoes.
Thank you. Like Kelly, more people pick Oscar Mayer bacon. And Oscar Mayer's hand-trimmed for leanness. One look and it's clear. With hand-trimmed Oscar Mayer, you get lots of red.
The redder, the better.
And try our great-tasting lower salt bacon, too.
Today, it's getting harder and harder to spot some denture wearers. Harder to tell who is and who isn't because they don't look or feel like denture wearers. They use Extra Hold Fast Teeth. It has a thin, powerful seal that's virtually airtight. So powerful, you'll get a better hold than any leading powder. So natural, you'll hardly feel it. And if you don't know your dentures are there, how can anyone else? Extra Hold Fast Teeth. Nothing's closer to real.
Broadway's Best, A Chorus Line, comes to the Music Hall March 6th through the 18th in a dazzling all-new production from Theater Under the Stars. Tickets for A Chorus Line on sale at Ticketron.
Welcome back to AM Houston. This morning we're going to be talking to Peggy Noonan. She was a producer at CBS News, and then she became a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan and George Bush, and now she is a writer living in in New York. And she wrote a book. The title of the book is What I Saw at the Revolution. It is called A Political Life in the Reagan Era. Good morning, Peggy. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
When you look back at all the countless speeches you wrote for, let's start with Ronald Reagan, which do you think was your finest?
Oh, oddly enough, you never think of them as speeches you wrote. You always think of them as speeches you worked on. With President Reagan, maybe the maybe working with him on the Challenger speech, the day the Challenger blew up, was sort of, in some ways, the most satisfying because it called on my old broadcasting experience, you know, working at CBS where when the news happens, you do the show. And also because of the internal stuff. There was so many people calling me and saying the president wants this and stuff like that. And it was short order.
Then you really enjoyed that in particular. Tell us about the first day that you met the president. It had been several months that you had already written several speeches for him.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things I write about in the book is the first day I was supposed to meet him and didn't, when a meeting had been scheduled for the speechwriters and the president, and for some reason it was canceled, but it was just canceled as I got to the opening of the Oval Office, and somebody opened a door, and I could see the president's foot on a hassock, sort of wagging merrily, and I thought, oh, gee, this is great, I'm really going to see him. And then I heard somebody bend over him and say, "You're in luck, Mr. President, the meeting with the speechwriters is canceled." And there was a lot of laughter, and I thought, my first meeting with him was great. He sat and talked about economic issues, actually, which were very much on his mind, and Mario Cuomo's great speech to the 1984 Democratic Convention. And it was just great to be there. He was so friendly, so sweet. I had been told going in that it is impossible to be nervous in his presence, and I found that to be true. He is a man so accustomed to actually thinking that he's lucky to be with you. You know, he's so happy to see you that you sort of get a little puffed up, and you know, and he makes it very easy for you.
Do you think it was that sentiment that contributed to his being the great communicator? What made him so successful at giving a speech?
Oh, well, I always think it's a little bit different from what the common wisdom is, actually. The common wisdom is that he was a great communicator because he had a sort of special flair with words and communication. And I don't think that was it. I think he was called the great communicator because he communicated great things, not in a great way, but great things in a very simple and accessible way. I always thought part of the key with Reagan was that he had, in his middle manhood, when so many of the men in power in Washington in the 1980s were learning the language of government, Reagan was out there for GE having lunch at the plant with regular, normal Americans, and what was being reinforced in his mind was how regular, normal Americans speak and think and what their problems are. So I think that was part of the magic there.
When you are assigned to help write a speech or work on a speech, as you like to call it, they say, for example, all right, he will be at this particular place on D-Day, write something. Is that basically how it goes? That's all the description that you're given, or are you talked to a long time about what your ideologies are so that you can reinforce that in the phrasing that you put in the speech?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes, frankly, not often enough. With President Reagan, sometimes you could sit and talk with him about what he wanted in the speech. When that was not possible, you talk to his top advisors, you talk to experts on the given subject, you talk to the advanced folks about, hey, physically, where are we and what are we doing? As a matter of fact, why are we doing this? So I would talk to 20 or 30 people before I'd even begin to work on something. With Vice President Bush, who I later worked for, it was a little bit different because I had it was a campaign, a presidential campaign that's a much more fluid environment, and I had a lot of access to him.
Now, you were responsible for coming up with Read My Lips.
No, I was responsible for working with him on the speech.
Okay, you worked with him on that. Tell us a little bit about, well, the Read My Lips speech then is a more accurate way to say that you were working on that. Yes.
Yeah, that was very exciting. That I love to talk about it because that for me was an example of how speech writing ought to work. I dogged Vice President Bush for months before he gave the speech, and I followed him everywhere. I spent 2.5 days on the campaign trail, literally following him from the limousine to the green room to the interview, to the limousine to the plane, and constantly talking with him about what he wanted to communicate, what he wanted to say, why he wanted to be president, what his plans were, what the differences were between him and Mike Dukakis, between the Republicans and the Democrats. And I just wrote down for hours and hours everything that he said, retyped it, would send it to him, he'd send it back. And it became, for people who don't have time to write these things themselves, it became the most like him writing it. Do you know what I mean? The most like a collaboration. So it was very exciting, and luckily when we were working on it, we didn't know how crucial it would be, you know? Mike Dukakis walked out of the Democratic Convention about 14 points ahead of Bush, to my personal shock. And it was 2 weeks later that Bush really had to pull it out, and he did.
We're going to take a break right now. We'd love to hear from you this morning, 390-KHOU or 1-800-324-KHOU. Back with more right after these words.
There's one fluids company big enough to take on any job. Ambar. On land or offshore. Ambar. With fluids for drilling, completion, and workover. Ambar. So for drilling mud to high-density brine, Ambar. Call the company that's as big as the Gulf Coast. Ambar. Your total fluids company. Ambar. Ambar. Positions for performance.
Frank's drinking burned out most of my love. It almost cost us everything. My minister recommended Charter Hospital in Sugar Land. The hardest part was admitting the problem, then doing something about it.
Charter Hospital will design an individual program with outpatient care through our counseling centers or inpatient hospital programs. To make that first step easier, we offer a free assessment. Call 980-4000, Charter Hospital of Sugar Land. If you don't get help at Charter, get help somewhere.
Welcome back to AM Houston. This morning we're discussing what life was really like during the Reagan years, right around the White House. My guest is Peggy Noonan. She's written a book. It's called What I Saw at the Revolution, A Political Life in the Reagan Era. Now in the book also you describe the first time that you meet Nancy Reagan. What was that like?
That was scary, actually. I had already gotten off on the wrong foot with her by telling her chief of staff that I didn't want to write her speeches. The reason being that I was new in the White House. I was the only woman speechwriter. I knew if I wrote the First Lady's speeches, I'd never get, I'd sort of be typecast and I'd never get to write anything really important, or at least it seemed that way to me. So when she wanted me to write her speeches, I said, gee, I really don't want to. And it's not really a smart way to start out there. Very shortly after that, I was walking through the East Wing of the White House and came upon Mrs. Reagan and her entourage. It is unfortunate for me that I was dressed in a really awful manner. Like I was going walking and I'd been working all day, and writing is kind of dirty work, and I'd just been hiding out in my office in like an old sweater and a work shirt, khaki skirt, big walking shoes, and big ugly socks. So I'm walking towards her, she's walking towards me, she looks at me like this and then said something to someone. And I realized I was just, for the second time, not making a good impression. So I said the next time I saw her, I hid behind a pillar. One of the nice things about the White House, there's pillars all over.
And what about when you met Maureen?
Oh, I got in a little trouble with her, too. When I walked into the Reagan White House, I sort of thought it was like the Johnson White House. Mrs. Johnson is sort of back there, and she has her beautification projects, and the girls are really nice, and they go to parties. And so the Reagan White House was a surprise to me, because the Reagan family, in terms of Mrs. Reagan and Maureen, was much more of a presence, And Maureen I got into a little trouble with when she wanted me to change a speech for the president, and I thought she shouldn't be asking me, so I don't think so. And we had a tense moment, I learned a lot about how not to say no there all the time.
Well, did things get better after that?
Yeah, they did. I did. I was sort of taken aside and advised by friends that I was doing a few things wrong, which I go into in the book.
John Dean used to call the White House Macho Mountain. Yeah. Is it really like that? Is it really tough?
Well, it's. I do quote it in the book. It is such an utterly male environment, Unlike broadcasting, unlike teaching, unlike a restaurant, where you never know what level a man or a woman will be on. The White House is overwhelmingly male. It's overwhelmingly white, middle and upper middle class male, And so it's like any real guy place. There's real guy jokes, real guy attitudes, real guy assumptions. And if you're a woman, they're not rude to you or anything. You're just not really one of the guys, So it was an odd place to be a woman in that regard. And it was a little different for me because I'd been from broadcasting where, as I say, that had been different.
But Ronald Reagan really does, you remark, have a wonderful sense of humor.
Yeah.
in a lot of different occasions. You hear him, he loved one-liners. Give us an example of one.
Gee, you know, the one I'm thinking of at the moment, I don't think I can say on TV. And now the second one I'm thinking of, I can't say on TV.
I guess it was Macho Mountain, huh?
Well, no, there was a certain genial blackness to Reagan's humor because he was so sunny and sweet-natured. People tended to think that that's what his humor was, but it really wasn't. It was, it could be very wry, never cynical, but a little off-color sometimes in a very funny. There was almost a courtly, slight dirtiness to his humor that I thought was very funny. And if I can think of a joke in a moment, I'm going to.
Well, the only ones that kind of come to mind are the ones, for instance, when he got shot and he said, "I forgot to duck." Or any way you look at it, "I'd rather be in Philadelphia," things like that, which are kind of probably along that genre when you think in those terms. You know, there was one time that I understand, too, you got the Gettysburg Address and made 23, was it, different revisions in it and circulated it because as soon as you wrote something, how many different people have to check over that before it ultimately does get to the president and he says those words and we hear them?
Yeah, the editing system in the White House is called the staffing system. You write a speech, work on it, get all your data, do that speech up, send it out into the air, and anywhere from, say, 20 to 100 people would look at it and had the right to make additions, deletions, say, cut this paragraph, cut this page. And I was shocked by this. I'd never seen an editing system like this. And it became very difficult, particularly under Don Regan, really, in the second administration, when his young aides took a lot of the suggested changes that came out of the staffing process, which made the speeches quite ungainly. So at any rate, I took the Gettysburg Address one day and wrote on the top of it what the staffing process would do to the Gettysburg Address, and just knocked out all the really good phrases and put in ungainly modern locutions in their place.
After 5 years in that kind of a situation, why did you decide to leave?
Oh, actually, I worked for President Reagan in the White House for just less than 2.5. Then left, started to write at home, started my book, had a baby, and didn't return to politics until 1988 to work for a short time, for I think less than a year, for Vice President Bush. And when worked with Bush just right up until he started the presidency, and then went back to finishing my book. I had gotten 2 extensions on my deadline in order to do the campaign. Random House had a very funny attitude. They felt that they'd given me an advance and I'd spent it, and now they deserved a book. So I really did sort of want to break off on my own and just be a writer.
And we're glad you did. What I Saw at the Revolution by Peggy Noonan. Peggy, it's good to visit with you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
This is really nice.
We're going to take a break right now. Time now to go back to Mario Gomez. He has our Monday morning weather forecast. It says it looks great. Mario?
That's right, Sandy. All we can say is keep it coming. The weather couldn't be better. It'll continue that way, at least through the day. We'll talk about the changes coming up in the weather picture for much of the upcoming week, right after this.
Hello, I'm Pamela Dozart. I'm a professional with a degree in computer information systems. My training in computer languages includes COBOL, Pascal, BASIC, PL1, and C. I'm also trained on operating systems such as Unix, VAX, and DOS.
For more information about job search, contact the TEC Employer Service Office at 530-0900.
Hi, folks. Mattress Mac here.
And Mattress James.
And if your mattress is older than 10 years old, you should throw it out and come to Gallery Furniture. It's fantastic. Factory authorized Sealy Posturepedic sleep set sale. Wow, what a sale on twin size mattresses for the young people. Queen or king size sleep sets for the adults. Whatever size you want. Sealy Posturepedic, the world's #1 seller, is on sale. Gallery Furniture.
We will save you money.
Now that's a chip off the old mattress.
Gallery 694-5570.
You'll find value at Home Depot from the ceiling to the floor. With what you get and what you save, you'll finish so much more.
At Home Depot, low prices are just the beginning. Your pool will look beautiful and feel safe with security fencing from Leslie Locke. And Master Halco chain link fencing is the perfect protection for your home or yard.
When you're with us at Home Depot, you'll feel right at home.
Got another one of those pre-spring weather patterns across much of the nation. The temperatures, at least across the south, Fairly mild for this time of the year. We're talking about readings mainly in the 70s today for a greater part of the state of Texas. Really, the coolest readings will only be across the upper Great Lakes in the blue there. Areas across that region of the country will only see temperatures today in the teens and 20s. The southwest, well, that's where we find a very large storm system actually in the Rockies of much of the southern Rockies of Nevada and across Utah. Storm is gathering some strength. You can see it off the California coast overnight, but across much of Nevada, especially around parts of Lake Tahoe, heavy snowfall is forecast to fall there today and later on across much of the Salt Lake City area there of Utah. So as the storm gathers strength, it looks like we're going to wait about 2 days before anything really happens in the state of Texas. There's a minor weather disturbance moving across the middle layers here of the atmosphere. It is creating some cloudiness across the west and the north, but again, these are high clouds which don't contain hardly any rainfall. We'll find that weather situation across much of Texas today, a very dry one. The southeast looks sunny today, a few clouds filtering in much of the sunshine across the upper Great Lakes. We'll find a few lake effect flurries across much of New England today, but all in all, a very dry weather pattern for most of the nation. Just widely scattered patches of rain here and there dotting the central parts of the nation and also the west coast around the Oakland and San Francisco area. For much of the day then, the coolest readings, as we said, behind this cold front for much of the northeast. The Great Lakes will see cooler temperatures. Chicago, for instance, 35 today. Bismarck at 33. As we get into Denver, a fairly warm to mild day, a high temperature today of about 50. And here's where all the snow will fly today. A lot of winter storm watches out for the southern Rockies and central Rockies here of the nation. The west coast will be cool. San Francisco at 56. We'll see the rain end there later this morning. And down in LA, a cool day at 58 degrees. Plenty of sunshine right here across the south. From much of the Mississippi Valley on eastward and westward, we will find a fair weather day. As we get into tomorrow, again, the storm system looks like it starts moving out of the eastern parts here of the Rockies into Colorado. We will see some cooler temperatures eventually for that part of the state, and you can see that for much of the southern plains and the northern plains, cooler temperatures are certainly on the way. It'll stay warm in Texas, though. Here's our current temperatures right here and around the city. Temperatures are mostly in the middle to lower 50s, 53 Intercontinental, 54 at Hobby. It's fairly mild, 61 right now on the island. We are looking at partly cloudy skies. Southeasterly winds at about 8 miles an hour. Pressure is holding steady at about 30.04. Again, all we have to show you on the 4D satellite today is these high clouds. Again, they don't produce any rainfall, at least for today, and the temperatures statewide are generally mild. Let's take a look at our forecast as we get into Monday, a brand new week with fairly mild weather. The temperature, for instance, at noon could hit 70. The afternoon will be in the middle 70s. Looking at a lot of sunshine today, a few clouds as well. Fairly mild evening. Temperatures overnight will be in the 60s. Tomorrow morning's low, possibly as low as 60, but overall a generally mild day as far as temperatures go going into tomorrow. As we get into the middle part of the week, that's when all the rain comes, just like last week. We saw rain showers on Wednesday and Thursday. It looks that will hold true for much of this upcoming week as well. Let's take a look at our community calendar. Sandy has that.
Here's what's happening around town. The 6th Annual Vocational Guidance Service Older Worker Training Conference. This meeting will help reach a large segment of Houstonians who are 55 and over and need a job. March the 22nd from 8 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. at the Astor Domain Hotel. To find out more, call 659-1800. That's 659-1800. Fashion Magic. The 32nd Annual Ebony Fashion Fair comes to Houston. All proceeds benefit the athletic programs at TSU. March the 31st at 8 o'clock in the evening at Texas Southern University. To find out more, call 527-7096. That's 527-7096. The Salute to Young Artists Contest. Texas Art Supply will sponsor an art contest for Bay Area intermediate and high school art students. April the 5th through the 21st from 6:30 until 8 o'clock in the evening at 1507 Baybrook Mall Drive. To find out more, call 486-9320. That's 486-9320. If you'd like to write to us here at AM Houston or submit something for the calendar of events, the address is KHOU TV, P.O. Box 11, Houston, Texas 77001.
Well, little Pete, it is March, and everybody is waiting to see what you have for him this month at Pistol Pete's Pizza. Dear Lulu, I love you. Huh? Oh, no. Oh, now this is great news. During the month of March, get 2 large pepperoni pizzas or any 2 large one-item pizzas for only $8.99. And every day, the most expensive pizza on our menu are large 6-item special pizzas, only $6.99. We've got it all at Pistol Pete's Pizza. In A-Leaf at Bissonnette and Wilcrest, at Antoine and Pinemont, and in Pasadena.
Don't move. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Because children can find trouble anywhere, protect them with Windmere Guardian. Personal care appliances with ESP, electric shock protection. Technology that shuts off an appliance at the source of electricity when a shock hazard is detected. So if you want to protect your children, even when you can't watch them, get Windmere Guardian with ESP, electric shock protection, now at a store near you.
Welcome back to AM Houston. 1 woman out of every 10 women who drinks will become an alcoholic. But there is an organization trying to turn the lives of female alcoholics around. It's called Women for Sobriety. And my next guest is Dr. Jean Kirkpatrick. She is the founder of that group, Women for Sobriety. It's good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about why you think there needs to be a separate program for women. Doesn't AA do enough? Alcoholics Anonymous?
Well, I really think that treatment has, I shouldn't say been wrong up to this time, but I think it can be better, and I think it can be individualized. It's my belief that alcoholism, since we know that it is a physical disorder, the treatment of alcoholism, that physical disorder, is a cessation of drinking, and then you've treated it. But what you have left then are men and women. So what we need to treat are the differences in the gender of men and the differences in the gender of women. And these are very different. I mean, it doesn't take a PhD to know that men and women are rather different. And then our problems are different and our socializations are different. And that's why I feel we need a program specifically for women, because women's issues as our gender are loneliness, feelings of isolation, feelings of guilt, feelings of shame, excessive amounts of depression, repressed anger, muddied self-identity, lack of self-esteem. And so these issues are specifically ours as a gender of women. They don't necessarily pertain just to alcoholics. They are the issues of the gender of women.
How is the program for Women for Sobriety different then?
Well, because we can hone in on, for instance, trying to strengthen and find our identity and our self-value and self-worth, we do our program on 13 affirmations. I am a competent woman. I am responsible for myself and my actions, and we take charge of ourself and our responsibility for those things which we do.
How many kinds of different affirmations do you incorporate from your own problems in dealing with alcohol?
Our program is based on 13, and really these just all came together as I was trying to get sober. I had been in AA for a period of 3 years at one time, and then I went back to drinking for 13 more, and I really hit bottom the next 13. I was in and out of hospitals for suicide attempts. I was in jail. I was arrested, and I had a jail sentence, which was remanded to a mental hospital. So it was a real bad time. I went back to AA, and I simply couldn't make it work. It just seemed not to be talking to me to say what I needed to hear. And so I'd put together 4 or 5 or 6 days of sobriety, and then I'd be in the liquor store again. And I'd think, what happened to me to make me go back and start drinking again? And I started to find that every time I wanted to drink again, I was saying to myself, I'm nobody, I'm no good, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, nobody loves me. So this cocoon of self-pity and self-destruction was what kept me drinking. So I thought, well, if I take that initial problem and start to find ways to turn that around, maybe instead of saying, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, no good, saying I can be a competent person, I can be a competent woman. And that's the way it began. So I started with these affirming things and trying to live a life of positive beliefs rather than working on negativities.
How successful have you been, and how successful is the program?
It's very successful. I managed to get sober, I stayed sober, and I was 55 years old at that time. And I thought, gosh, I couldn't get a job. I was out of work. I had a PhD. I was overtrained, over age, and a woman alcoholic. So I thought the only thing I know how to do in this life is to learn how to quit drinking. And so I thought, my gosh, I guess there are a few other women that might have this problem. So that's really how it began.
Do you deal with the issue of the stigma? There's a different stigma that
yes.
society attaches to a female alcoholic than to a male alcoholic.
Yeah. We don't deal with it specifically. However, I like it if our women will come out and identify themselves as such. The reason I believe that is if we say this is a physical disorder, and yet we go around hiding it and not saying what we should say about ourselves, how then, if we're going to hide it, how then can we expect the public to identify us? However, our organization, we take care of the anonymity of everybody who chooses to be anonymous.
Do you think the societal stigma is changing?
Oh, gradually. Not very fast, but gradually.
When you think in terms of also the other different kinds of things that you must address as women, biologically, women respond differently to alcohol.
Yes, they've been finding that women, I think we've kind of known that women couldn't handle quite as much, but now we see that there is a hormonal chemical difference that women cannot handle nearly the quantity that males can.
If someone is listening this morning and would like to get involved in this program, how can they do that?
All they need to do is call our telephone number. I believe we're in the Houston phone book, and I believe we have it here, 520-1501. We'd be happy to respond to anybody.
And is the program similar to AA? There is no cost?
We ask for a donation at meetings.
And is it a weekly meeting, or you have meetings all over town?
We have meetings all over town, and so women can go to the various meetings and the various groups here in Houston.
Very good. Dr. Jean Kirkpatrick, Women for Sobriety, thank you very much for joining us. The number one more time is 520-1501 for more information about Women for Sobriety. We're going to be taking a break right now. When we come back, we'll tell you how to prevent crime in your home and in your neighborhood. Don't go away.
Think 644-6483.
Think 644-6483. Think Rodney DeYoung.
At Rodney DeYoung, there's never a down payment. Your first month's premium puts your policy in force with
Rodney DeYoung.
When you need quality, affordable auto liability insurance, pick up the phone and call
Rodney DeYoung. Think 644-6483. Think Rodney DeYoung. Think Young.
Doctors measure back pain by how far you can bend. Extra Strength Dones is made for back pain relief with an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones makes back pain go away. Extra Strength Dones, made for back pain relief.
Now from Bologna, the culinary heart of Italy, where pasta sauces are rich with beef, comes the recipe for new Classico di Bologna with beef and vegetables. Classico di Bologna, one of the new Classico authentic regional pasta sauces.
Hello, Houston. We're having a 21st anniversary sale, and it's going to be big because Lawrence Marshall Chevy Old Geo in the little town of Hempstead is the #1 Chevy truck retailer in America. How do we do it? By selling for less. End through March, you'll save even more on all Chevys, Olds, and Geos during our 21st anniversary sale. This is on top of our already low Marshall discount prices. Lawrence Marshall Chevy Olds Geo, $290 to Hempstead. We clobber big city prices.
Welcome back to AM Houston. You do not want to become a crime statistic. So there are some things that you can do to prevent crime from taking place in your home, near your car, or in your neighborhood. This month is March, and it's dedicated to a program that's called March on Crime that's sponsored, organized, and put together by the Houston Police Department. I have two officers from HPD here this morning to tell us a little bit more about this program. My first guest is Officer Larry Wilrich, and Richard Cruz is here also this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. It's good to see both of you. What kinds of things did you bring to show us? There's certain things that there will be different programs that you will be focusing on to let the citizens of Houston know a little bit more about what they can do. Who would like to give me an overview of the program?
Well, basically, the program is set to give the citizens information on what they can do to protect themselves in various areas. And today, I think we're going to focus on home protection and how to secure your residence and things like that to lessen the chance of your becoming a burglary statistic.
People watching might say, well, are there really some things that I can do to make the burglars go away?
What we want to do is actually, it won't make them go away. It'll reduce the chances of someone actually making an attempt. What we're trying to do is deter the burglar from the street. If he's walking or driving down the neighborhood, if it's at night and he sees it's well lit, there's a clear view of all the windows and all the doors. If, for example, he approaches the residence and he sees that there's a strong lock on the door, if he tries to the lock and the door and sees it has a good lock on it. Also, a good burglar or burglars can tell if the windows have two different types of locks on them, the lock that comes with the window and a secondary locking device. And you know, if there's a dog in the yard or if the neighbor comes out and takes a look at him and stuff, there's just a lot of things that can be done.
What kinds of things did you bring here this morning? I guess I'll start by picking this up. What does this mean? What is this for? Oh,
well,
for the
basically,
hinge?
this is a to show how the hinges on the door, on your front door, are pinned. After you've inserted a good solid door and good locks and devices and so forth, well, we come in with the little nails here, then we drill a matching hole to the opposite side, and as that door closes, it goes through and it sets in a secondary locking device. In the event that they were to take the hinges apart, the door has still got that bar through the center of it where it's not going to be able to take it off the hinges.
Which doors should you be primarily concerned about? The front door or the back door?
Well, would be all entry doors coming
All
into your
entry
home. So
doors.
you're talking about the ones from the garage, the back door, the front door.
All right. What about this one? Oh, how about this way?
Okay, on that one, that shows the way a double-cylinder deadbolt should be installed. That's a cutaway of a door showing you that particular one is a different type of lock. We have certain characteristics of a lock that you should have. A 1-inch throw. You should have 2 turning cylinders so they can't wrench the lock. This particular one is a thumb latch, but what we recommend is a double cylinder, so that way if a person goes in through the window, they won't be able to open the door to take items out, larger items out quickly. They'll have to go in the small opening that they'll have to leave the same opening that they came in through.
All right. Then we take a look at this. This also looks like it's for the door.
Yes, that's a strike plate. That goes on the actual wood frame around the door. That particular one is made so you drill holes into the 2x4 studs behind just a door facing, and that gives it that added strength. There's several different types. There's some that you use long 3-inch wood screws that secures the 2x4.
Which is this one, next one right here? Is this the
No.
one you wanted to show? No, you wanted me to show
No,
this one?
it shows right.
Oh, okay. It's on the side. Oh, all right. These are the kinds of things that you want to put in. All right. And this is pretty similar to this. It looks like just that one has the key in it and this one does not.
Right. Yes.
It's very similar. Okay. Let's see. Oh, this is important because you can engrave your name on a lot of things. And why is that important?
This sort of goes in with the program that we have, our Houstonians on Watch and our Operation Identification. And this is where we advise people to go in and engrave their driver's license number rather than social security numbers on their merchandise. This way, if it's ever stolen, then there's a likelihood that that would be recovered and we could return that property to the person.
Why their driver's license?
Well, it's easier to trace.
It's easier to find where you live. All right. And then we have a sticker right here.
Right. Now, that's placed inside the home on the windows to show the people passing by the street and things like that this person is participating in Operation Identification.
And what is that?
And what it will do is also let burglars know that all the properties on the inside is inscribed with the driver's license number, which would cause him a problem when he's trying to sell the merchandise or get rid of it.
After the burglary has taken place one time, is there usually a likelihood of it taking place at the second time?
That has occurred a number of times in the past where a burglar or burglars will have entered a home, not having enough time, being scared away, and notice that there are certain items in that home that they would like to take. What we suggest is after they're burglarized, immediately after they're burglarized, they can call the Community Services Division. They can get a home security survey. An officer will go out to their home, assess the weak points of entry, and then make recommendations on how they can, without spending a lot of money, how they can secure their home.
And the security check is free? How long does it take?
Well, it doesn't take long at all. Usually it takes anywhere from, depends on what we have to work with, you know, how many windows, how many doors, how large the house is, but it usually takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
Oh, that's not too bad. Okay, is there anything here that I needed to show that I haven't showed yet? This one in particular?
Okay. Now, some people, well, this was basically showing up and they can't see it, but this is plastic on the inside here, and it's actually a weak lock. And a lot of people are still using those type locks as locks on their front door. And if you'll notice, this does not even have a the secondary locking device on, as some of them do. So it's really vulnerable to burglary.
What those are made for, interior doors, you know, from closets or from one bedroom to another. They're not really made for exterior doors because they're so weak.
So the March on Crime will continue. We will have you on, I'm sure, several more times to tell people more about how they can prevent becoming a statistic. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break right now. I'll have a final look at the news when we return.
If you haven't noticed, it's truck month at your Texas Ford dealers. We'll guarantee up to $1,500 in cash back on select Ford trucks in stock. But you could save more than $3,000 at truck month at your Texas Ford dealers now.
Texas Ford and you.
We all have to start somewhere. And you always think that, oh, what's the point? You know, I'm so out of shape now, there's no point. The 30-minute workout is computerized. You program the machine, you set it to your strength level, and you work against that. Definitely the 30-minute workout, that's the way to start, it's the way to finish. It's just the way to do it.
And now you can do it and get summer free or 50% off enrollment at Valley's President and First Lady.
If you or someone you love has been seriously injured on the job, the results can be devastating to you and your family. At times like these, help from an attorney can mean a lot. Call the Injury Helpline. Talk to an attorney near you for free, one who will explain your legal rights and costs. There are no attorney fees unless you receive payment for your injuries. The insurance companies have attorneys working hard on their side, and so should you. Call 1-800-343-7001.
This is Zachary. Zach is a happy, healthy one-year-old boy. Zach took his first steps at 10 months. His favorite things are green peas, jingly keychains, and funny faces. Zach's parents think he's a pretty special baby. They feel the same way about Zach's birth mother. Discover the Edna Gladney Center, a leader in maternity and adoption services for over 100 years. A choice everyone can live with.
Jury selection will get underway today in the fraud and conspiracy trial of former National Security Advisor John Poindexter. That trial will include videotaped testimony from former President Ronald Reagan. Poindexter is accused of conspiracy, obstructing Congress, and making false statements to lawmakers. There is word today that Iran may be making a serious effort to free American hostages in Lebanon. That from a London newspaper, The Independent. The paper also says American officials are negotiating with Iran through the French government. Vice President Dan Quayle denied the British reports yesterday on the CBS program Face the Nation. President Bush also refused to confirm any new movement on a release, but he did not deny negotiations through other countries.
I have said that if I find a way to get these hostages released, and the way to do it is through quiet diplomacy with the French, the British, the Iranians, or anybody else, I will do it. I want those hostages out of there.
18 hostages are still being held in Lebanon, including 8 Americans. 25 years ago, blacks marched from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery in a fight for their right to vote. Sunday, 4,000 people, blacks and whites, set off to reenact that historic march. They recall the brutal attack by police that came to be known as Bloody Sunday. The 50-mile march will continue throughout the week, ending with a rally next weekend in Montgomery. Closer to home in Clear Lake yesterday, it was the 6th annual Celebrity Waiters Day at Frenchie's Restaurant, where you could find astronauts and other celebrities waiting on tables to help raise money for the American Cancer Society. Channel 11 space reporter John Getter and medical reporter Susan Starnes also helped. This is a popular event. This year is expected to raise between $12,000 and $15,000 for the Cancer Society. And finally this morning, you know, during World War II, the Army built a training field at Zool, Texas. It's between Seguin and San Antonio. But some of the equipment there is much older than the base. Old, but still flying, as we see in today's visit to Ray Miller's Texas.
I started gathering parts for this truck when I was about 15 years old, and it took me about 15 years more to put it all together.
But Roger Freeman's interest in World War I trucks is decidedly secondary to his interest in World War I airplanes.
I just about grew up with this airplane since my father started restoring it about the year I was born.
This is a 1917 model Thomas Morse.
And it's powered by a 80 horsepower Lerone rotary engine, which spins with the propeller. And it was armed with a single Marlin machine gun. They stored the ammunition in a box in the fuel tank.
Roger's dad rented the plane to the movie company that made The Great Waldo Pepper, and one of the scenes depicted the Morse in flames.
The airplane never was on fire. The flames were all special effects that were added to the film later.
But the plane was unused for a long time after that, and it needed another restoration by the time his dad passed it on to Roger.
What I've mainly had to do to it is just add patches, just small repairs, trying to make it airworthy again.
Roger has been licensed since he was 16, and he works as a corporate pilot. This is a hobby. There are only 6 or 7 of these planes left, and this may be the only one in flying condition.
This was originally intended to be a fighter aircraft, but by the time it was built, it was already obsolete. So they used it as only an advanced trainer.
How's it look?
Good. We couldn't see your scarf, though, Roger.
This thing is sensitive all over the place.
You may hear more about Zool Field if Roger finishes the flight museum he's planning. This is Texas, and I'm Ray Miller.
That looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks like a great hobby for a day like today, you know, with the weather the way it is. Tomorrow, though, boy, it's going to be windy around Texas. Let's take a look at our current weather situation. Right now, the temperatures are fairly mild in the middle to low 50s around the city, 61 down on the island. We are looking at partly cloudy skies. I can see the sun coming up over the horizon here. It looks like a fairly nice day. Southeasterly winds running about 8 miles an hour. The only difference between today and the weekend is that the humidity will be climbing somewhat across the state. You see temperatures around the state to be fairly mild, a lot of 70s. There is a developing storm in the southern Rockies. It might bring us some scattered clouds and some showers tomorrow. Other than that, a very windy day tomorrow along the Texas Gulf Coast. Let's take a look at our forecast. That weather system will certainly bring us some showers around midweek, but for today, looking at a dry weather pattern, some partly sunny skies today, high temperature at 74, mild evening, mostly in the 60s. Sure hope we can lock in this weather pattern. You know, it rains in the middle of the week, and it's nice and sunny on the weekend. Boy, I hope that lasts. That's the pattern we have for you this week.
It's great. Thanks
Yes.
a million, Mario. And coming up bright and early in the morning, we'll talk on the latest on dealing with hysterectomies. Also, we'll tell you how to plan smart for your retirement. I'm Sandy Rivera. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in 25 minutes.
Amazing Blue Star ointment stops itching fast. Jock itch, ringworm, psoriasis, tetter, and removes corns and calluses. Blue Star ointment, the one that's guaranteed. Ask for it.
Para marzo el 9, la poeta premiada Pat Mora presentando sus obras en la Universidad de Houston, Downtown. Llamar 749-4768. El 9 y 10, conferencia sobre liderazgo femenil en la Universidad de Houston. Llamar 699-9716.
Si usted tiene actividades para publicar, escriba al calendario de la comunidad del Canal 11, Buzón 11, Houston, Texas, 77001.
I'm Charles Hadlock. Too often renters learn what's hidden in the fine print of their leases when it's too late to help. We've prepared this pamphlet to give you pointers on what to look for in a lease, what to do when your landlord won't make repairs, how to make sure you get back your security deposit when you move out. For a copy, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Renters' Rights, KHOU TV, P.O. Box 11, Houston 77001. Read beyond the fine print and know your renter's rights.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Jakob Smear, and the people at Best Western just told me that they're remodeling many of their hotels to make them even more comfortable than before. I hear when this one is done, it's going to be a real palace. Looks like the word's gotten out.
At Best Western, we're working hard to make sure a good thing just keeps getting better.
Haven't I seen them someplace before?
For crisis intervention, call 228-1505.